Coming to you from Brick House in downtown Brooklyn, this is 112BK. On the show today, trying to make sense of all that happened at the close of the most recent Supreme Court term. Plus, a Brooklyn-based organization that nurtures creativity. And this.
We're gonna rise like the water. We're gonna shut these tensions out. Hear the words of my great-granddaughter saying, free all families now.
Hi and welcome to the show. I'm Ashley Ford, joined in the studio by producer Ross Tuttle. And that was a small taste of this past weekend's march across the Brooklyn Bridge to protest the Trump administration's separation of families at the border.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Ross.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Good. So that was brought to us by our producer, Ariana Rosas, who was there listening, talking to people. She estimated the crowd size at about 30,000 folks marching across the bridge to Cabin Plaza. She said Amy Schumer was there, Kerry Washington, Ravi Ragbir, the immigrant rights activist whose wife we had on the show a little while back. And here's a bit more of what she heard. This from Rama Issa, the new executive director of the Arab American Association.
My name is Rama Issa, and I'm an immigrant. I'm Syrian, and I was born and bred in America Latina. My liberation, the liberation of my community, is directly tied to the liberation of these children at the border. Now more than ever, we need to stand together, united, side by side, to remind this administration that fear will not prevail.
Also, Al Sharpton was there, making the New York connection, Trump sadly being a product of this city.
Absolutely.
This is where Trump came from. This is where he built buildings. This is where he discriminated in housing. But we send a message to you, Trump. This is what will make America great. Blacks and whites and Muslims and Jews and young and old, we're here in your hometown to say don't deport, don't break up families. We stand together. We are not going to let you take these children.
It makes me feel good to see so many people standing out and standing up and speaking out for marginalized folks and for people who don't have, unfortunately, the privilege or even what I think is a human right to speak for themselves in this time.
Molly Hoagland, Brooklyn Heights. I'm here to stand up for the immigrants from all over the world, and we need to keep families together and be a force for justice.
My name's Bora, and I live in Fort Greene. And the reason I came out here today is so I can help in some way with the cause, with the families being separated. And I personally think that it's good to at least show up and show that you are supporting those people.
Coming up, a conversation with legal expert Elie Mystal on the latest developments, lots of developments, with the Supreme Court. The swirl of Supreme Court decisions at the end of this term had my head spinning. I was still trying to make sense of them all when Justice Kennedy, the key swing vote in innumerable 5-4 decisions, announced he was stepping down. I immediately cursed loudly and then took a breath and wondered what it meant and where I could find hope. Not sure if this next guest can provide the latter, but he can certainly help provide some insight into what might be coming next. He's the executive editor of Above the Law, and he joins us by Skype. Elie Mystal, thanks for joining us on 112BK.
Thanks for having me.
Elie,
I have no hope. There's no hope.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Maybe we'll talk about that a little later. My first question is, can you put in perspective this last month of activity in the court? How bad is it?
Yeah, this is pretty awful. I've been covering the court kind of closely for about 10 years now, and this is the worst that's been. If you might remember when Antonin Scalia died, the court had set up a lot of cases like the ones that we saw this term, and they were only frustrated by the death of Antonin Scalia. With the successful holdup of the Merrick Garland nomination and the installment of Neil Gorsuch, the court was basically able to do everything that the conservatives on the court, I should say, were able to do everything that they wanted to do, and they did it all this term. They made it harder for gay people, they made it harder for minorities, they made it harder for women, and obviously they made it very difficult to be a Muslim trying to seek asylum or refugee status in this country. It was a terrible term.
Okay, so let's take a step back really quick. The travel ban was gutting, but what other decisions were particularly troubling for you?
Yeah, the decision in the abortion case was terrible. That basically decreases doesn't decrease a woman's right to choose as much as it decreases a woman's ability to advocate for her right to choose. So I found that disturbing. The union case that came out on the day right after the travel ban gutted public unions. They changed the law. They overturned well over 40 years of law, 50 years of law, gutting public unions. As a minority, what was the most disturbing to me, besides the travel ban, was their decision in Gill v. Whitford. That's the gerrymandering case. That was an opportunity to really change this, the structure of our government as it pertains to how usually conservative state legislatures draw district maps to disenfranchise minority voters, Latinos in the case of Texas. And there was a really good system for overturning that. Kennedy had for years asked for a good system to do something other than what we do. He was given a good system, and he didn't do anything. He didn't use it. And he let Roberts kick that case away. So that was terrifying. And
why do you?
I also kind of. I also kind of think that you shouldn't be humiliated just because you're gay and you go into a shop, a public service, and ask for a cake. So it was all bad.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with you. I don't think that that's, one of those things that generally people would fight against or think that it isn't okay. And I think that sometimes we're losing the plot somewhere up the line from the people to the people who are making the laws, right?
Yeah, and the Baker case, I feel like, is just on the right, is talked about in such a wrong manner. They act like it's a freedom of religion thing. Oh, I shouldn't be forced to bake a cake if I don't want to bake a cake. I get the free speech argument there, I really do. But what they seem to fail to be able to grasp is that as a person, I should be able to walk in to a public establishment and be treated like every other person. And the fact that you can discriminate against people who happen to be gay just because of that orientation under the guise of religious freedom. Man, religious freedom has been used to justify slavery. Religious freedom has been used to justify outlawing misogyny, the miscegenation of the races. Religious freedom can be used for lots of bad things, and I think the decision in the Masterpiece Cake Shop case is one of those terrible examples.
Right. And one of the things that I keep thinking as you say this, right, is that you say this is as bad as it's been in the 10 years that you've been studying the Supreme Court, and it's certainly as bad as it's been since I've been paying attention, to be perfectly honest. But is this as bad as it's been?
I mean, historically?
Historically.
In 1854, the Supreme Court said that a black man has no rights that a white man is bound to acknowledge.
Right.
That was the Dred Scott decision.
Yeah.
That was one of the casus belli for the Civil War.
Do you think?
That's where I have to go.
Do you think that we cannot come back from this?
What do you mean come back?
come back from this, do you think that we cannot change what is? That the retirement of Justice Kennedy is a bad, bad time for us, and we definitely need to be taking things seriously. But should we be despairing? Or is there something that we can do?
Yeah, so I have two answers for that question. One, absolutely. This is a meteor strike, and we're in the point of the disaster movie where the meteor has been identified, but there's no actual way to stop it, okay? So Kennedy's retirement and Trump's eventual nomination of some other arch-conservative white person to replace him is going to mean that lots of things that I care about, a women's right to choose, Roe v. Wade, affirmative action, a lot of things that are important to vulnerable people in this country are about to be taken away. And to use the meteor analogy, life as we know it is going to have to go underground for a little bit and try to ride out the impact here. It is as serious as you can think.
How do we fight from underground?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been saying is that there is no legal way to stop the Republicans at this point. They have the votes, they have the majority, they have the White House. If legal is your upper boundary, then you've already done lost. If we're going to fight, you have to be willing to fight kind of old school activism, civil disobedience, and use those kinds of strategies to try to retard the progress of this court. I mean, I went back after I stopped basically crying at my desk when I heard he was retiring. My mind immediately went to Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail. And in there, he says very clearly, an unjust law is no law, and you have actually a moral obligation to fight unjust laws. Martin Luther King wrote that from jail, right? Let's not forget.
Oh, I don't forget. Absolutely, I don't forget. It just makes me wonder, Elie, though, like, if all is lost, if we have no recourse from here on out, I mean, is this sort of, I mean, your work, what you do, I mean, are you just kind of on the rounds now, letting people know that it's time to go underground?
I mean, look, when he announced his retirement, I texted my wife and I was like, you realize that I might have to get arrested now. Like you realize that we now have to prepare for that possibility. In terms of the long-term fight, let's assume that at some point in the future, Democrats or progressives regain control of the Senate and of the White House. I know that seems nearly impossible from where we sit, but the wheel of history tends to roll. And so let's assume the wheel comes back around. One of the dangerous things about this time is that these appointments that Trump is making, we're talking about 20, 30 years of influence on the court. So how do you stop that? One of my kind of more radical ideas is court packing. Now, court packing has a bad rap. People say, oh, it's just trying to use politics. Yes, we could try to use politics to blunt the charge of the illegitimate justice appointed by Trump and Neil Gorsuch, and the illegitimate president who's going to appoint the next one, that is Donald Trump. And there's a way to do it that's not completely partisan. One of the things that I've tried to tell people is that you have to remember, the Constitution does not require there to be 9 justices on the Supreme Court.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
That's a statutory law from 1869.
Right.
The lower courts, all the Ninth Circuit and the Second Circuit here in New York and whatever, they operate with much larger courts, 21 judges, 29 judges on the court, and then they hear cases in a 3-judge panel. Those 3 judges are chosen randomly. You can imagine a court packing scheme where a Democratic president would appoint 10 new justices. Let's even give a hint to bipartisanship.
Elie, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you up, but I have one more question, and I want to make sure that we get to this. Can the Supreme Court influence the Russia investigation in any way, whether deciding on president being subpoenaed or the president's ability to pardon himself?
Yeah. Yes. They absolutely can. They absolutely will. One of the things coming up right now, the Supreme Court just today agreed to hear a case next term about double jeopardy. So you know how people have been saying, oh, he can pardon federal crimes, but he can't pardon state crimes? They want to change that rule so that if you are charged in the federal court system, you cannot then be charged again in the state system.
Which would be awful, and then would allow him to evade so many charges, including those from our AG right here in New York State. Yes. Hopefully that doesn't come to pass. And even though you tell me it's hopeless, I got to tell you, Elie, I believe in the people who live and work among me, and I have hope. And I really, really hope that, you know, even though you seem to know a whole lot, that you're actually wrong. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to see the fight, and I'd love that fight to be victorious, and I'd love to be wrong about this. Thank you, Elie, for being on the show. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome back to BRIC House. We have Ross Tuttle back in the studio.
Hi, Ashley. Well, I just wanted to, you know, just debrief a little bit.
I don't have a lot of, I think, patience for hopelessness. And I don't have a lot of patience for what I consider unearned hopelessness. We have a long history of battle and revolution, and sometimes people are squashed and sometimes people rise up. But we've had just as many risings as we have squashings in our history. And that makes me think that there's always room to hope for the best. I also think it's dangerous to send people into the world and into the streets without hope. I think hope is essential to the human spirit. I don't think it's everybody's job to foster, encourage, or give it, but I do think it is a kind of cruelty to attempt to take it from people who would have it and who do find it in meaningful ways.
And we talked about this kind of in the lead up to the show about doing that and how that might be happening, and how a lot of what is happening on the right in conservative places, that fear is being stoked, and that fear can go to dangerous places. And if people on the left start giving into fear of what's happening, then we're screwed. Yes. I don't know that his message is one of hopelessness. I think it's one of, shifting a paradigm. And,
if the paradigm is underground. Fear is powerful, and fear is effective, and fear is necessary, but fear does not belong in the driver's seat of our lives. And when fear is in the driver's seat of our lives, we might be heading in one direction, and that direction might be the right direction. But we definitely need to think about who's under our tires when we're heading in that direction. And the only way we can be, I believe, responsible about that is to let people know what we don't know and what we do know. What we do know is that this is bad, that this is going to be hard, that this is something to fight and to fight thoughtfully. What we don't know is that there is no hope. You have to be careful about what you send fighters out into the world with in their hearts. You absolutely do, because fear can be corrupted. Passion will not be corrupted, not when it's attached to your values and not when it's what you believe. Yes, we do want to change paradigms, and we do want to inform people. Absolutely, that is what we want to do, okay? But in that process, we have to be careful about how we do it. We want them to take it seriously. We do not want them to use it to put more harm into the universe. And fear will lead to harm. Passion can lead to change.
I'll leave it there.
Okay. I wish I'd known about this group when I first moved here. Think about moving to a place, a creative place like Brooklyn, and instantly being able to dip into a group of like-minded folks. take advantage of workshops and meetups to help you polish your skills, develop other skills you didn't know you had, pay mind to self-care or professional development, with things like finance thrown in for good measure. I needed this. I know that part sounds a little boring, the finance part, but it is essential. And that's what the SLAP Collective is here for. To tell us more, we're joined by Sabrina Labossiere, the collective's founder and director, welcome to 112BK, and program director Ashley Asiarae. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Can you just tell me, starting out, Sabrina, what does SLAP stand for?
So SLAP is actually an acronym. It stands for Self-Love, Affirmation, and Preservation. And we're just proponents of people using the arts as a way to self-explore, self-express, and come to a little bit more of daily wellness.
I love that. I'm super into it. Where did this idea originate, Ashley?
This was all this lovely creature and our co-founder, Mr. There's a few people, I guess, who I could name. I'm gonna hand it over to Bri.
That's how creatives work. This is the thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, well, technically this person, but then we all, like, that's kind of how it happened. But go ahead, Sabrina, you tell me.
Yeah, so it definitely is by all stretch and intentions a collective effort, but it started off as an idea of what am I doing with my art? Why am I making art if I'm doing nothing much with it, and just started to explore different ways and spaces that I felt comfortable using my art and exploring it a little bit more in a public space. And that saying, build it and they will come, is, is kind of what happened. It became a collective very, very soon after that.
I love that. And speaking of that, Ashley, you're going to answer this one.
Oh, I got you.
So who is you guys' target audience, or who shows up? Like, what kind of people do you have collaborating and working with SLAP or learning from SLAP?
So our active foot soldiers, I will say, are your, I'm gonna take this term and I'm gonna glow it up, millennials.
Yes. Yes.
Because no matter what you want to say about us, we are out here moving and shaking, okay?
We do what we can. Yes, we do.
However, our attendance ranges from 4-year-olds all the way on up to our 60-year-olds.
Wow.
So if you're coming to a writer's workshop, it's open for all. If you're coming to an open mic session, you'll find everybody there.
Right.
Any and everything, any and everyone is our target.
I love that. I love the intergenerational bent of having people from so many different walks of life, because that's how communities and collectives are not that different from each other, to be perfectly honest. I think collectives are just community with intention. And communities so often, you know, benefit from having those intergenerational ties. Was that purposeful, Sabrina, or was it more so just how it worked out?
I think it's just how it worked out, but it was purposeful in the sense of we just wanted to be open to whatever the possibilities were. We're very much a collective that is just a pooling of resources, of ideas, of knowledge, and as millennials, as she likes to label, as we are, I guess, labeled. Yeah, we got to look outside of that, look outside of ourselves, figure out where there's guidance before us, and of course, we're not doing this just for ourselves. We're trying to kind of set a path and figure out what'll work for the people behind us. So it kind of just ended up being a collaborative, collective, what do you need, what do you know, and just kind of like running from there.
I love that. Ashley, do you guys, would you say the impetus of the organization is to just make things easier or a little bit easier for artists and to like help them have a little bit more room? Or is it more of like to challenge artists and to like, you know, look at a creative life from a more holistic standpoint?
I feel like we are that artistic auntie. Yeah. So we have that tough love, we're gonna challenge you, we're gonna push you aspect. But we also have that part of us that's very, very deep into educating us about what our opportunities are, how easy it is to actually do something, where all you need is a collective of people to say, I'm down, and then something happens. A lot of people just need somewhere to go. Someone to say yes, someone to say, I like that idea, someone to say, we're here for you, we're here for it. It's just an open platform. Whatever it is that any of our artists want to do, we're here for it.
I love that. I love that a lot. Sabrina, can you tell me, At what point did you realize that this was going to be a real thing? Because I also feel like as creatives and as artists, we often get it into our, like, we have an idea, but is it gonna actually be a thing? You know, like that's different. At what point were you like, oh no, like this is more than an idea, this is a plan?
Yeah. So many times, so many different instances of like, oh, you're doing it, or oh, you're doing more. But I think the first initial one was, like I said, I started this kind of exploring my art, doing a lot of writing, workshops, our monthly open mics that are share and tells that we host, and by seeing the people that come out and support, the people that ask me what I'm doing and are helping me develop that actual answer of, oh, I'm doing more than just trying to hold the space, or they're telling me what I'm actually doing and seeing that it is impacting more than the writers, or that there are more writers than you see to the everyday eye. So I think after doing 3 or 4 open mics and seeing the world of creatives that were showing up and also sharing, that were photographers, that were filmmakers and just other mediums, but also having that intersection of other creative practices being at the root of what they do as well, was just kind of, oh, we have more to showcase. We have more people to represent. We have more people to support and create opportunities for. So it kind of just took off.
Sorry, I'm really excited. The more you guys talk, the more excited I am, to be perfectly honest. Ashley, here, really quickly, because we have like 2 minutes left. Can you tell me really quickly just 2 events that you guys have coming up that you think would be amazing for maybe somebody like me who's listening and going, what, where? How do I get in on this?
Just 2? 2.
Just 2.
Just 2. I'm going to throw out our Yoga in the Park Plus Field Day, which is our most current event that's coming up. That is on the 14th. It's at Prospect Park. If you can go on our website, we have Google Map directions, but I believe it's at the north end of the park. So that's happening. We are games. Fun, outside, in the sun, enjoying ourselves as a big family, and then we're all going to bring it together with some yoga. And then after that, of course, is our Share and Tell, which is a monthly event every 3rd Saturday of the month. This month it is going to be at 839 Lafayette Avenue. It's a backyard kickback. The last one was amazing. There was singing, there was poetry, there was conversation, there were photographers and videographers, and just, it was amazing. It was
art on
amazing.
display.
It's going to be amazing.
Art on display for sale. So at this one, we're featuring Kali Abdu and Courtney Wallace, but that does not mean that anyone should feel afraid to step up. Just because we're featuring someone does not mean that you can't get up there
and
your shot. Show your life.
Shoot your shot. Okay, so what's the website? How do people get more information about you guys?
Main website is theslapcollective.org. We're official. And our Instagram is our main social media, and that's just the Slap Collective on Instagram.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much for being here. Oh, this was my pleasure. And that's the show for today. Thanks for joining us. Tomorrow we'll be back to talk about the fight for fair housing and wine pairings for fireworks, what to sip on the 4th. Hope you can join us.